Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, then welcome. My name is Christina, and on my channel we talk about all things beauty from my own experiences. So if you're looking for the best and most honest how-tos and reviews from a consumer's perspective, then make sure you subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave any comments that you have for me down below. So 2022 is coming a separate video on like eyes and brows and lips and stuff like that. When it comes to making liquids, when it came to different beauty products, I have a couple of powders and stuff like that, but you will see a common denominator is going to be that natural cream type of makeup. And if I have any videos that are existing of these products, then I'll link those in the description box down below for you in case you want to check those out. We're going to be starting off with primers, and the first one I want to mention is this one. This is the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. I have the shade medium, and this one I don't remember exactly when it launched. However, I remember the Friend products. I just don't have it with me anymore because I used it all up. I like to use this as a base. I put it on my face wherever I want a little bit of that dewy look, actually a lot of that dewy look. And this is very beautiful because it does give you a little bit of coverage. However, for me as a combo normal to oily skin type of person, I don't like to wear this alone because I find it can be a little bit greasy, especially on my forehead. So I tend to place this as wisely as possible. Like I'll do a lot right here on the top of my cheekbones, a little bit like on my chin, and I completely ignore my forehead. So foundation on top of this, or like a lot of concealer if I'm spot concealing that day. I feel like it's a really nice glowy base. So if you're into that type of product, this is a perfect one for you. Another primer that I really enjoyed this year, I started using towards the end of the year, is actually this NYX Plump Right Back primer. This one is more of a gel consistency. It tends to make the skin feel super hydrated, and I do notice it feels like a little bit plump because of that hydration that it lends to the skin. And it also primer per se, but I find that the tackiness of this really helps to adhere any foundation or creams or liquids that I might use on top of it. If you're looking for something that feels very cooling, very refreshing and hydrating on the skin to start off your makeup, I would really recommend this, and the price point on this is really nice since it's drugstore. The next primer I've really been loving is this one. This is the Embryolisse Cream Concentrate. It's essentially a multi-function product, so you can use this as a makeup primer, you can use it as a moisturizer, and it also says you can use it as a moisturizing mask. Now I really enjoy this because I feel like it's very gentle on the skin. This has never broken me out, and it's a very simple ingredient list, so I find that this does really nice on my skin. If I'm going to do my makeup, but it's been a while since I've done my skincare routine and I don't have necessarily a fresh base of skincare, then I like to add this because it kind of resets my skin. It allows all of my products to really sink in and kind of melt into the skin really nicely. I don't have any dry patches. I feel like that this just gives you a really even canvas in order to put your other products on. Like I said, I do have combination skin. I don't feel like this is too heavy. Now, I will say you kind of have to play around with how much you put on. So if you tend to have very, very dry skin, you may add a little bit more of this product than someone that would have like very oily skin. So I just really find that it's one of those primers that is super versatile. The last primer that I have is this Cali Ray Blurring Primer. Now this is the only one in this category that does some sort of blurring, sort of mattifying, because I do tend to like those moisturizing dewy primers. I find that this has been really oil controlling primer that I've used and really liked this year. I find that it doesn't pill whatsoever. I think that it really fills in those pores and it makes them look super, super blurred. Like as soon as you put it on your skin, I like to just pat it in with my finger, and it really does create a very like flat canvas. Like your pores aren't allowing product in there, you know, if you didn't use something like a pore filling primer. I haven't had any issues with this with the foundations that I've been using with it recently. I don't really find that they pill. I don't find that it like becomes like streaky or patchy or anything. It's just really great. It feels very lightweight. It doesn't feel like a layer of primer on the skin. So I really enjoy this. If you tend to get oily in the T-zone and you don't like those very hardcore like pore filling primers, I would suggest using this one because it does give you just a little bit of that airbrush look. Moving on to foundations, I actually have 5 foundations that I want to talk about, and this year I really delved into foundations. One skin tint that I actually forgot to include but I want to talk about right now, I think that it is currently in my room and not here in my filming setup, but it's the Fenty Beauty skin tint. That one, it has by far been my favorite skin tint of the year. I believe it was also my favorite skin tint of last year. I just think that the coverage is really, really great. It gives you light to medium coverage. I think that it gives you the perfect amount of hydration without looking oily on the skin. But again, it does give you that coverage that I like from a skin tint. I like something that looks really natural, but also just adds a little something, like a little bit of evenness to the skin. I find that it doesn't emphasize any lines. I think that it lasts really long for a skin tint throughout the day. And I don't know, there's something about it that I just really, really enjoy. And it's also super travel friendly because it is that smaller like plastic bottle, and I really enjoy that one. So that is my skin tint choice of 2022. So moving on to foundations, it's the one that I'm wearing today on my face, and it is this one. It's the Hourglass Soft Glow Ambient Light Foundation. This one is truly such a beautiful foundation. Now I will say that the shade range is very interesting. It's actually very difficult to find your shade, so I would highly recommend that you go in store and swatch a couple shades to figure out which one you are. I am in the shade 8. I thought that I would be in the shade 11. However, shade 8 is almost a spot on match to my skin. It is a little bit light for me currently, but I think that it looks flawless. This foundation gives the perfect medium coverage. I would say that it's medium to full, like you could build this up, and it does mattify the skin just a touch. It doesn't add any sort of hydration. It doesn't have any sort of oil to it. So I think that this actually looks really, really great on me because it holds my oils at bay like throughout the day. This is one of the longest lasting foundations that I've tried in 2022, which is why I think it has been sort of my go-to, because whenever I am gonna opt for foundation, it's for going out or an event or filming or something, so I'm gonna need it to last all day. So this has been an easy pick for me. The next foundation I wore a lot in the spring and summertime, and it is this one from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Beautiful Skin Foundation. Now I would say that this is very similar to a CC cream or a skin tint because the texture of this is very serumy. So this gives you a really nice light to medium coverage. Right now it is a little bit dark for me. This is more of like my summer shade, so I'm not wearing this currently like around this time of year, but I did use super travel friendly. It gives you the perfect glowy skin look. Like if you're kind of trying to do that model off duty look, is that what it's called? No makeup look. This is perfect for that. I will say if you don't like looking dewy, it can veer towards looking a little bit oily. So if you do have very oily skin, or in general, if you don't like that look, if you're more of like the person that likes matte foundations and complexion products, I would not recommend this. Like if you wanted to wear this without a primer and still wanted that super healthy skin look, this is perfect. It would give you that look with no problem. Since we're talking a little bit about that, talk about this one. This is my favorite drugstore foundation of 2022. This is the L'Oreal True Match Tinted Serum, and this on the side of this dropper because it's very messy. And the dropper is fine, but it's not necessary. I kind of just like use this, you know, but I love, see, and it gets on the side, which packaging could use some work, but the actual product is amazing. I have this in the shade 4-5 medium. This feels exactly like skincare going on. It feels like a thicker serum. I would say that this is a good light medium coverage. It's right in between light and right in between medium. I think that this just perfects, it kind of plumps the skin and just makes it look very, very fresh. I do find that this works well with a lot of the products that I use on top of it. However, you want to make sure that you let let it dry down a little bit, because if you don't allow it to do that and you apply like, say like a cream blush or something, it can kind of move around the product there. So make sure you let it dry down just a little bit, or you use like a thin amount there and then add all your other products on top of it. Next is going to be one of my favorites from earlier in the year that I wanted to mention. It is this NARS Soft Matte Complete Foundation. I have this in the shade Medium 5 Valencia, and this is one of my favorite full coverage foundations of 2022 because it does really give you that soft matte look. Now, I'm not a huge fan of like that super matte look anymore, so this is probably as matte as it doesn't make it look dry or anything like that. This is definitely my go-to for full coverage and something that I'll wear if I want it to last all day. I find that this plays really well as my face gets oily throughout the day. It doesn't look too intense or anything. It holds its integrity throughout the entire day, and it just makes the skin look, how many times can I say flawless? I'm going to say it again. It makes the skin look flawless, makes it look airbrush. Really enjoyed this all throughout the year. The last foundation I wanted to mention, foundation in the shade, I always forget, in the shade 260 Light Medium Cool. This is a perfect match for my skin tone. It is the most skin-like, most natural finish foundation of the bunch that I'm sharing with you guys today. It doesn't add any mattifying ingredients or properties, and it doesn't add any sort of oils, and completely even, perfected, and just like ready for more makeup, I guess. Like, it's a good canvas product. I would say that this is a medium full coverage. It says that it's a medium coverage foundation, but I feel like I can get this too if I just want to do a quick face of makeup, but I can also wear this if I want to film or if I have somewhere to go. I feel like it's a very versatile product. It's a very versatile foundation. I think that this one would work really well for all type of skin, whether you're dry. I have a full video on it, so I will share that in the description down below for you guys. If you're in, the Kosas concealer is my absolute favorite of all time. This is in the shade number 6, and I love this because it's super skin-like, but it gives me really good coverage. It looks a little bit hydrating, but it doesn't like leave my skin or under my eyes really creased. The shade number 6 is perfect for a little bit of brightening, but it looks like a natural brightness, so it kind of just looks like I don't have dark circles under there, but you can't quite place, like, doesn't leave my under eyes or anywhere look super textured. So great all around. Can't say enough about this, and I will continue to talk about this. And then the second concealer is this Deep Brightness right here on the inner corner of my eyes, or anywhere really that I want to add just a touch of brightness. This consistency is very nice. It's kind of creamier, like a thicker cream looking. It doesn't look oily and it doesn't look greasy, but it also doesn't dry down. Color correctors or brighteners, I have two here that I want to mention. The first one is the right amount of peachiness. It's not too orange on my skin to where I feel like I have difficulty covering it with a concealer. The texture of this is kind of tackier. It is a little bit sticky, and I like that for the corrector because I find that it really places that color exactly where I want it to be. The second color corrector I want to talk about is this Milani brightener. This is in the shade 120 Peach, and this one is a lot thinner than that Smashbox one. I find that this one is really good for face discoloration. So if I have any freckling that I want to cover, if I have any blemishes or anything like that on my skin that I want to cover, I'll put this on top because I find that this is really nice and nourishing. It's not going to emphasize any dryness when it comes to, say, acne, you know, if like it's flaky at all. This tends to cover it just enough to prep it for concealer. And because I place this on my skin, let it like kind of sit there for like a minute or so to. All right, setting sprays, I only have one, and it is this one from Charlotte Tilbury. This setting spray has Flawless. I mean, my oils still come through, however, it's not as bad as overall. This has been my go-to setting spray. It's really great, doesn't have any sort of like intent really like, and I was completely correct on that. If you're familiar with the Benefit Box blushes, you know that, and I think it is the perfect pinky peach shade on my skin tone. I'm wearing it today. You can kind of see how much it like brightens the skin, and it gives me definitely that like peachy sun-kissed look, I guess. A little bit goes a very long way. So I will tap my brush into this and I'll tap it off, and then I'll even tap patchy at all, and it just looks I don't know, it just puts together a look. I really have been loving blush this year, and I find if I want just like a pop of brown in here, but it is like that pinky brown muted shade, and I really like where it just looks kind of like you're wearing blush but not exactly. This is the perfect blush for that. It just adds a little bit of color, but if you're kind of intimidated by bright blushes, you know, this one would actually do really nicely. So if you're kind of just now dabbling into blush, but you don't want something like super pink or or a pinky blush, you know, so it's very versatile. And I find that this can also be added on top of powder without making your face look kind of weird and like patchy and stuff, like move the powder around. I don't know what it is, but if I use this on a bit more blush, it still looks really beautiful. So love this. I miscounted but it's the perfect pink shade. It's kind of like a dusty pink on me, and I have it on today on underneath that Benefit blush, and I find that this pairs really nice with blushes to enhance it. This dries down really nice. Like, I would say this is sort of like a semi-matte, so it looks really nice on the skin. It definitely adds some pink, so if you're not a big fan of like pink blushes, this definitely is gonna look pink. This is probably as light as I would go when it comes to pink blushes. But yeah, I think that this blush is actually how versatile it is as well. The Tower 28 Magic Hour blush, it's completely destroyed because I've been using this I think for 2 years now, and I am just so in touch of brown in it, so it looks so youthful on this, a lot of pigmentation, but you can really blend it out to just look really flawless. Definitely gives you that dewy effect. I like to pack this onto my cheeks and powder. I kind of lose the intensity of this blush, so I like to make sure that I have a blush to stay on the cheeks for a long time. And then last, I have this Bare Minerals bronzer in the shade Kiss of Copper. Now, I use this a lot in the spring and slash bronzer type of product. So there were a lot of times that I used this without wearing bones, a little bit like in my in the hollows of my cheeks and then like all around the perimeters of my face. And it's the perfect shade because it has a little bit of that bronzy look to it, but it's definitely like that copper shade. It has sort of like a little bit of a sheen. It's just one of the absolute best bronzers, I guess, that I've ever used. They came out with 3 shades. This is the only one that I picked up. I may pick up the darker shade because that one has always interested me. But yeah, this just have some cream bronzers as well as a powder bronzer. So the first one I want to talk about has been my absolute favorite for the year of 2022. And this is the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer in the shade Medium. As you can tell, I've gotten a lot of use out of super easy to blend because of that serum texture. I can put this all over my skin to work for all the seasons, but definitely a must-have all year around for me. I thought that this was, or still do think that this is one of the most amazing. This a lot at the beginning of the year. This is the Makeup by Mario Contour Stick in the shade Medium Dark. Now this is the perfect option if you want that super sculpted, hold the pigmentation wherever you place it on the skin, but you're able to blend out the edge, like swiping it on the face and then blending it out with a brush. But I can also put it on a blush. No matter the way that you like to use it, whether you put it straight on the face or a brush, it looks a lighter bronzer. So I can almost use this as a bronzer or a contour shade. This to contour my nose. I found that this is the perfect shade for me to where it doesn't, I would contour. And again, this multi-stick formulation is just the best. And so all around, love this product. I'm definitely going to repurchase this whenever I'm out. I use this constantly. I love it. And the last bronzer is actually in this palette. This is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit Unlocked palette. This is the elephant one, obviously. And it is this bronzer shade right here. There's only, and it just perfects any cream bronzers or cream contours that I have on. It's the perfect shade to where it adds a little bit of something, but it doesn't look super muddy. And again, I just love this finish because it definitely has that same powder finish as the setting powders that they have, like the ambient lighting powders. So it looks very light on my fingertip. However, on my actual skin, when I build it up, it just is the perfect bronze shade. I find that this finish is very, very soft, so it doesn't look to bake when I want to just do a regular set. When I want to do an all over set of the face, this is just the perfect powder for that. It's super finely milled. It never really looks cakey, all very airbrushed. I can use this, and sometimes I'll go in with a heavier hand. If I want my makeup to last all day, I will pack it on with something like this little minute. I'll brush it out with a regular like powder brush, you know, and then I'll spray my face with setting spray, let that really sink into the skin, because this tends to really just like melt into the skin really nicely when you set it with setting spray. And then if I need to, I'll go in with a smaller brush and I'll reapply some powder wherever I don't want to look too shiny. And it's perfect. I just love it, and you can't go wrong with this powder. I feel new favorite powder that I started using this year is this Haus Labs one. I love this. When it comes to packaging, this one is superior because it does have that mesh like strainer thing right there. So it definitely keeps the powder very condensed, cast or anything. And I like to use this anywhere that I want a little bit of bright eye contour, on my chin, anywhere on my forehead, you know. So it's perfect for my face, and then I'll like go around the perimeters of my skin with makeup down nicely. It doesn't emphasize any sort of texture or any sort of lines in my skin, and I like to just do a very thin layer of this. And then these face brushes as well as the eye brushes have been this has been a game changer for my concealer application. This is pretty much that same brush but bigger, and this is amazing for foundation. I mean, I use this to set my face. These pointed ones are really great for any sort of like very like in there, you know, application, or just like brushing away. Super soft, and they're just the best. If you've never checked out BK Beauty, I'm like a game changer for me. I mean, they also have like a bunch of eyeshadow brushes that I love. I use them every time that I do my makeup. All right, guys, that is everything for this video. Those have been my best of beauty 2022 as far as face makeup goes. Stay tuned for my eyes and lips category video. I will be posting that. Excited to continue using these products as well as discover new ones in 2023. If you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.